Minister, you're well aware that the site has been identified in Roscommon for the ETB for a training centre. It has the backing of all political sides in Roscommon. It's not just me. I think everyone who has spoken to you, Mogi Maher, your councillor in Galway on the ETB, has been involved in it. And this is Roscommon coming together, identifying a site that will actually help in skills down the road. And what I'm asking is, Minister, the status of that at the moment in relation to is the department funding it, and where are we at? If they haven't a decision made, when will the decision be made? Thank you, Minister.
Well, I want to thank Deputy Fiztmaurice for raising this question and indeed for raising this issue with me on a number of occasions, and I want to thank him for being good and honourable enough to acknowledge other people like Councillor Mogi Maher, Senator Dolan and others who have worked on this, and I acknowledge that everybody in Roscommon in this House has come together to try and make progress on this and to work very closely with the GRETB, and I thank you for your work on that. My department's aware, I'm very aware of the Galway Roscommon ETB application and the work that they're doing on the business case in respect of a proposed purchase of a property in Roscommon town to facilitate new apprenticeship training capacity. I can tell the Deputy that initial documentation regarding this request for funding was submitted by GRETB to Solus, our agency, late last year, and Solus is now working with GRETB to finalise that business case, which is important in terms of securing funding. As part of this process, GRETB will be required to provide some further detail to support the acquisition from a strategic viewpoint, while taking account of the overall regional and national plans for apprenticeship provision in the region. This is in line with requirements that I have to satisfy in terms of the infrastructure guidelines. Once the business case is completed, it can then be appraised and forwarded to my department. But I do want to say this in a very practical and plain level. We need to increase apprenticeship capacity dramatically around the country, and any capacity we can find, I'm very eager to try and progress. We also need to make sure that people can access apprenticeships near their locality. That if somebody in Roscommon wants to become an apprentice, that they don't have to travel long distances to do it. And we also have to recognise that there is a gap in the map when it comes to Roscommon that I'm very, very eager to fill. You will understand that it wouldn't be helpful for me to comment on a specific building or site, but my overall aim, and I can tell you this very clearly, is to make sure that we have apprenticeship provision in County Roscommon, and indeed that we maybe even be a little bit more ambitious than that we don't just limit it to apprenticeship, but other skills provision that should be available in the county. My commitment to you is that my officials in Solus will continue to work very closely with GRETB, and I thank their leadership team who are doing a very good job on this to try and get that business case completed as a matter of urgency and to work through the process. And I'm very eager to work with you, Deputy, and your colleagues in the constituency on this matter.
Thanks, Minister. The most reason, and I know that in fairness to you, you've engaged up to now, the most reason that suitable buildings doesn't come available too often in a lot of parts of the country. And I would personally know this building, it was a garage one time, and for the type of skills that they are proposing or the type of apprenticeships, it would be ideal in it. And you don't just get that, even from the building they have at the moment, their staff can actually walk down to this new proposed building. And the one thing we don't want to see is that something, and I know you have said that some other information is to be sent. The one thing we don't want to see is that something would drag on and that we'd lose the likes of a building like that, because I'd be just fearful that we don't get them, and the opportunity is there in Roscommon. It would help local business, well, accommodation and everything. You know, there's all the different parts to it where youngsters could actually be, some of them staying in the town, and it will help rejuvenation area as well. So I'd ask you to keep your engagement with it.
Fiztmaurice, I agree with everything he said there. I don't want this to drag on either. I obviously can't be site specific because it's a process that needs to be gone through. But if you ask me, do I want to see apprenticeship provision in County Roscommon? I do. Do I want to help GRETB and Solus make that happen as a matter of urgency? I do. Right across the country, we're prioritising massively increasing apprenticeship capacity. We just had an announcement in Dundalk today in relation to extra capacity for DKIT to provide apprenticeship capacity, as an example, as recently as a few minutes ago. So we're actively in the business of trying to grow our apprenticeship provision. We saw more apprentices registered in this country for the first time registrations last year than we have any other year. Almost 9,000 new people put up their hand and said, I want to be an apprentice. That means thousands more people to help us build our homes, to help us retrofit our houses, to help us meet some of our key targets. But I think the point you make about the regional piece is really key. We have to make it as easy as possible for an apprentice to become an apprentice, and we have to provide opportunities to businesses in the region to be able to access the supply of apprentices as well. That's why I'm excited about the GRETB proposal, and I'll work very closely with you and your colleagues in Roscommon on this matter.
Thanks, Minister. And the one part of it is that we are struggling, and we talk about building houses, and I know some of them are being built off site at the moment. But a lot of the wet trades, we are struggling to get youngsters into it. I think and mechanics as well. I see at the moment, say one time ago you had a spanner when you were, or a spanner when you were fixing a tractor. Nowadays it's a computer. It's totally different. So the training is totally different from, what it was one time. You need part of both, obviously, but the computer is identifying all the problems now. And the level of, say, technology that is the way it has changed is, we do require a lot of youngsters to learn that, because say some of the mechanics that were brought up in the old system are more reluctant to go at it, being honest with you. We need the mechanical side of it, because obviously you need transport going, but we also need the wet trades if we're talking about houses, plastering, all of that. And all I'll say is that site there, in my opinion, is an ideal site, and I would love if it can be pushed on, and I thank you for your engagement so far, and I hope that you will keep the finger on the pulse, because this isn't me, it's every representative in Roscommon and, in fairness, in East Galway.
Minister?
They are all together on this.
Thanks, Gary. Look, I give you my word that I'll keep a very close eye and an active interest in relation to providing apprenticeship provision in County Roscommon, and working with you and Oireachtas colleagues in relation to this. I mean, you're so correct when you talk about mechanics. I was out recently in the AA have an upskilling and reskilling kind of workshop, because the mechanic of today needs a very different skill set tomorrow. I think last year we saw more new electric vehicles purchased than new petrol or diesel cars. That means the mechanic today is going to start seeing more and more EVs coming in. It's a very different skill set. So the level of upskilling and reskilling that we have to do, even of existing people working in trades, modern methods of construction being another example, is very, very real. I am really encouraged by the number of people now taking up apprenticeships. I mean, we've seen a 63% increase in the number of new apprentices between 2020 and this year. We've actually seen more people take up the craft apprenticeships than we had targeted for. Record number of people becoming apprentices, but we have to do more. We need more capacity, and we need that regional balance to it. And I want to thank GRETB and you for your work on this, and I will be asking that business case be brought to a conclusion as a matter of urgency.
Thank you, Minister.